What's going on, folks, and thanks for joining us today on CN Live. I'm Colion, and our guest today is a world champion shooter, and he made history as the first law enforcement officer to win a USPSA Handgun National Championship. It's Robert Vogel. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much. No, happy to be here.
Hey, me too. All right, so talk to me. Let's start from the beginning. How did you get into shooting initially?
Well, actually, I was born and raised on a farm in Ohio, so I was kind of out in the sticks and didn't have much else to do growing up. So I was very young age, shooting and hunting became a big part of my life. And then I'd say about 15, when I was about 15 years old, is when I just became infatuated with handguns, actually from watching all the old cowboy John Wayne movies and stuff. Yeah. And about the same time period there, I decided I wanted to be a police officer. So I went that route. And that's what really got me, I guess, started into where I'm at today with the whole competition thing. I went into police academy right out of high school and started competitive shooting from there. And then just, boom, that's how it all took off, how it all started.
So what was it in particular that made you say, oh, I want to go and be a cop? Because it seemed pretty straightforward for the most part. But you've been a cop for about how long now?
Yeah, well, altogether, let's see, I guess about 14 years. Yeah. Full-time for 8.5, and then the last 5 I'm still on reserve or auxiliary, but I've done the whole shooting thing, teaching thing full-time for the last 5 years. Okay. So for me, it was just, I've always had a passion with shooting and just really the whole I want to call it warrior mindset and all that. And I know I'm mostly known as a competitive guy and that is, won this and that or whatever, but I've always had a realistic view of it from the beginning, and I wanted to to me, being a police officer or going to the military were the only 2 options for me, to do something along those lines, self-defense, shooting-wise, and just, I chose being a cop. So. Okay.
And so then where did the competition side of things start? Like, how long after you became a cop did you kind of go into the competition world of things?
Well, I started competing before I was actually
before you were a cop. Okay,
right?
Gotcha.
Yeah, I went from between 18 and 21. I was like a 2-year academy type thing, and I started competing when I was 19. So it was just a snowballing effect. I could say I was shooting very seriously since I was 15, and I thought I was pretty good, but I had no idea. I just competed against my friends and family, and I go to a first match when I'm 19, and actually I won the thing, about 20 guys there, and I thought, wow, maybe I'm pretty young. Maybe I have a little knack for this. Maybe if I just really pour myself into it, I could possibly be really good. Yeah. And so that's really what started it for me. And then within about a year or so, I actually was able to win a state championship and be right up there with some guys that were at the nationals. So I guess I kind of saw the light at the end of the tunnel earlier on, and then just kept going.
Awesome. Now there's this idea out there that a lot of cops aren't necessarily into firearms. And a lot of them are generally really good shots. Yeah. Now, you actually are a trainer on the force, correct? You actually train the SWAT.
Yeah, when I was full-time, I was on the SWAT team for most of my full-time tenure. And I was because I was interested in guns and all that. So they sent me to the school to be a state firearms instructor and all that. So, yeah, I did that within the department. And then, of course, since doing things on my own, I travel around a lot. And it's a mixture of a lot of civilian competition type people, but also a lot of police officers, SWAT teams, military, special forces guys. I've definitely done a number of those gigs as well. But you're definitely right in the fact that your average cop is not really into guns. I mean, I kind of thought that being 18 years old, like, well, a lot of people must want to be a cop because they like guns and shooting, like me. And I think initially at that age when you're young like that, we all went and shot in the academy, but then life happens and people lose interest, and to the vast majority of cops, that gun is it's something else hanging on their belt that they have to qualify with once a year, and it's about it.
It's interesting. I can usually tell the cops that are gun guys and the cops that are not just by looking at certain like the choices in firearm typically, and just some of the accessories. Usually I see a cop running a base plate, he probably knows a thing or two about firearms, certain holsters, things of that nature. I'm seeing a cop running a Kydex setup, then I'm kind of like, okay, all right, that's interesting. I ran into a cop. I was at a pool party one time. there was a cop there, and he was running a Wilson Combat, and I could pick up on it really quickly from the grips. And when I asked him about it, he was kind of like, he was really startled because he was surprised. He was like, no one asked me about this. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He was like, yeah, man. He wanted to pretty much. We ended up talking for like 5-10 minutes. But yeah. Typically speaking, you can usually tell the gun guy cops to whoever versus the
guys that aren't into it so much. I mean, they have the bare basics and just sometimes how they wear it. And I know exactly what you mean.
So now, how do you manage? So with the competition side of things, because there's this notion out there that there was one predicated not too long ago, the idea that the way training for competition is going to get you killed in a real world situation, things of that nature. Is there any ounce of truth to that, or is that something that?
I think by and large, no. I'm not saying there's absolutely nothing to it. And that's the whole, like, I can talk for an hour on different aspects of that.
We got an hour.
By and large, what's that?
We got an hour.
By and large, what I teach people, I tell people straight up, I'm not foreign to tactics by any means, but primarily what I teach is shooting skills.
Gotcha.
Which is much more black and white.
Yeah.
You can't, in my mind, you can pretend to be tactical, but you can't pretend to shoot well.
Yeah.
It's like pretending to do a certain amount of pull-ups or pretending to run a 100-yard dash in a certain amount of time. You either can do it or you can't do it. The world can see it, and it's pretty black and white. So that's what I stick to a little bit more. I mean, it's measured in speed and accuracy, and so because of that, I don't think there's maybe as much controversy around maybe some of the things I talk about as maybe some other things. But of course, I mean, there's shooting skills. I think then there's the whole tactical side, and there's the third element, which I think a lot of people don't realize, and it's the mindset.
Yeah.
And I think that's totally separate from both of those two avenues. And I don't think that's something, the mindset, I don't think that's something you learn on a range. I think it's something that you develop through experience and from a way of thinking of things.
Yeah.
So it's complicated, the whole thing.
No, it makes perfect sense. I was talking with one of my friends. I call him my gun friend too, just because he's the person I can talk to unrelentingly about firearms, and that he won't get annoyed. And we were kind of going over some video footage of different shootings that we've seen, and at some point I picked up on the fact that the people who usually made it out alive, you can tell there was a different thought process in their mind. It wasn't necessarily what gun they were using or what equipment they had. It was something about the way they interacted in that encounter that actually saved their lives. And the gun just kind of facilitated that mindset. I can easily get lost in the products and the accessories and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But more and more I start to realize the importance of like you said, the mindset that comes into play when you're talking about a combative situation. And
there's just so much. There's so much too. I've read a lot of books on that, and also in the mental side of performance, being, I guess, an athlete or whatnot. Because when you look at a lot of shootouts, there's some where maybe there's some distance, and being a higher level shooter would really, help you. But a lot of them, the actual shooting skill required is not necessarily that hard. It's how well you can react and what you have to, under pressure when it counts, how well you perform.
Absolutely. Now, with how is it though? Because you teach pretty much 3 different skill sets. So there's the combative side, the competition side, and then of course just the kind of practical proficiency side. How do you navigate going back and forth between those different skill sets? Because they're more different than people give them credit for. Especially when we start talking about competition shooting versus say like USPSA versus say IDPA.
Yeah. Obviously depends on what class I'm doing, depends on the students and kind of what they're looking for. Generally, the beginning, regardless of the students, regardless of the class, the beginning is very much the same, teaching people how to shoot.
Yeah.
They got to have the fundamentals down, obviously with the grip and the trigger control and all that. So that is the same. I tell people, I define it all as practical shooting, and my definition is practical shooting is we're taking a real handgun, something we would really carry or something very similar to that. When the decision is made to shoot, we are shooting at and trying to hit a human-sized target, preferably as fast as you can hit it under a variety of circumstances. Yeah. And that's the definition of practical shooting. So that's what I start with. And then from there, obviously, in the competitive realm, there's a lot of nuances with the rules. And if you want to do well, there's a lot of things to cover and go over there. And in the, I guess, more of the cop realm, it's obviously going into more of the mindset and all that. But I mean, I usually start out from there, and it just kind of it all comes out.
Okay.
But the basis, though, for what I teach, proficiency in shooting is very similar regardless of what you're into, I think.
Gotcha. Now, what is your favorite style of shooting from a competitive standpoint?
Well, I pretty much do it's IDPA or USPSA, which is, I know it's all acronyms are crazy. People don't know this. But.
So let's do this real quick then. We're gonna take a quick break, and then when we come back, let's just start with you kind of breaking down the difference kind of on the surface level between IDPA, USPSA, and so forth and so on for people who don't really get it. So we'll be back real quick.
Okay.